Where are the most religious places in the world? You might say the Vatican in Rome, the Western Wall in Jerusalem, or Mecca in Saudi Arabia, but you probably don't think of anywhere in Japan. But walking around the city, I was surprised to learn how religious Japan really is. But there's a difference between being religious and having saving faith. And the truth is that the reason Japan is so hard to reach with the gospel is because they believe so hard in something else. And that belief isn't just a matter of spirituality, it's directly linked to their cultural identity. And I want to understand it. Okay, before we go any further, let's talk about Shintoism. Most Japanese people identify in some way with both Buddhism and Shintoism. But while Buddhism isn't indigenous to Japan, Shintoism is very Japanese at its origin, and its roots go back to the beginning of Japanese culture. So what exactly is it? Well, I'm at a Shinto shrine to find out. This is called a tori, and it's how you know you're standing just outside a Shinto shrine. Shintoism is actually hard to define. It doesn't have a founder or a set of sacred scriptures or a fixed dogma that's easy to pin down. There's no concept of original sin, and there aren't weekly worship services at a Shinto shrine. People come and go whenever they want, whether that's every day or a couple times a year. But the basic idea is rooted in devotion to kami. In Shintoism, kami are spirits or forces connected with the natural world. There's this idea that sacred spirits take form in nature, in wind or rain or mountains or rivers, and that certain animals serve as messengers for kami or stand guard against evil spirits. And Shintoism says that humans can communicate with kami, and that's why they come to a shrine like this, to pay respects or ask for help with something like good health or a good job or even good results on exams. When people come into the grounds, they wash their hands and mouth at a basin as part of a purification ritual. Then at the main hall, they throw a few coins into an offering box, then bow at a slight angle and pray. A lot of Japanese families even keep little Shinto altars in their homes, often right next to a small Buddhist altar. The two religions coexist in Japan, a lot of times literally side by side. Shintoism has played a huge part in Japan's history and cultural identity, and even if a lot of Japanese people aren't really devoted to Shintoism at a deeper level, they often still see it as a part of being Japanese. For many, it has less to do with trying to be connected to the spiritual world, and more to do with being connected to their cultural heritage and national identity. That's what makes it so hard for many people to embrace the good news that there's actually only one true God that they can know personally through Jesus. But there's another major religion in Japan you should know about: Buddhism. Even though it didn't begin in Japan, Buddhism is the most prominent religion here. About 70% of the Japanese population claim some connection to Buddhism. It's huge here. So what does that actually look like? Well, I'll explain it in a second, but first, a quick tour. This is Kaminarimon Gate. It's one of the entrances, and it means Thunder Gate. This is the marketplace. It's been here for centuries. It stretches 200 meters, and you can find anything: kimonos, art, snacks, anything. This is a giant bronze incense burner. People come from all over to burn pink sticks and wave the smoke over their clothes for good luck. But this is the main attraction: the 5-story pagoda and main hall, the Sensoji Temple. Beautifully and intricately made. Sensoji Temple is the oldest temple site in Tokyo, and it's been rebuilt a bunch of times since its founding in the 600s. And as is the case with most historical religious sites, it's now part tourist attraction, part market. But why is this place so significant? Well, it's complicated. For many, Buddhism is closely tied to Japanese identity, and that makes it hard to imagine rejecting it. Even if it's not really a part of everyday life, leaving Buddhism can strain or even break family ties. One missionary said, to be Japanese means one is Buddhist and Shintoist. It's an inseparable part of the culture. But even though most Japanese people embrace some form of Shintoism or Buddhism in their lives, these, or really any religious belief, is reportedly in decline. And today, anywhere from 30 to 39% of the population identify as convinced atheists. Some surveys even report that up to 70% of people don't truly follow any religion. It's complex when cultural and traditional and religious beliefs are all mixed together, but functionally, some consider Japan the most religious and atheist country in the world. So where does that leave Christians? How do we talk with Japanese people about the gospel? Where can you even find Christians in Japan?
I was born and grew up in Kanagawa, which is next to Tokyo, and when I was a high school student, I was staying in New Zealand for almost a year. Except for that, I have lived in Japan in my whole time.
I was born in Yokohama, and I raised in Hachioji, Tokyo, and I lived in Japan all my life.
This is Asami and Ami. Neither of them grew up Christian, but their stories tell us how against all odds they came to know Jesus through the kindness and vulnerability of other believers.
My teacher, who was in charge of taking care of students from abroad, she took me to church and I went there for 1 year. But I never understood what people were saying or what the pastor said. I saw people hugging each other when they were going through difficult times and crying for each other and praying. They always welcomed me. They hugged me and one old lady, she came to me and kissed my both cheek, and I was so surprised and happy. I never felt welcome like that before. So
I took a class of Bible study in the university, and there is a pastor his name is Stephen, and he invited a student to his church. Yeah, and I just went there to get a advanced point, because he told the student, if you go to the church, you will get the point. For the first time I came to the Soma, the wife of Stephen, she did her testimony and she cried. And I was so surprised because it's really rare to see someone crying after we grew up. So I was really interested in what made her cry. And at first they are so kind. Then it's not just kind, but they're like real family. They help each other. They pray for each other. They truly care about each other.
While Japan is hard to reach, it's not impossible to reach. That's why I want to meet Yoshito Nobuchi, pastor of Soma Church. Soma is a network of churches around the world, but there's something a little different here about Pastor Yoshito. He's sort of a rare example of a Japanese Christian who grew up in a Japanese Christian home.
Yes. 私の両親は私が小さい時に、教会開拓の働きをビジネスマンとしていくつか助けていました。そういう中で私が育ったので、教会ということを聞く時に特に私は特に本当に自然に、本当に素晴らしいものであるということを体験しながら歩んできました。よく私たちの家のリビングにはいろんな方々が来て、食事を共にし、または聖書を開き、またいろんな人たちとのお祝いやまた楽しい時を一緒に過ごしました。そういう中で育ってきたので、本当に愛し合うこと、またイエス様の良き知らせを聞きながら歩んできました。
Yoshito knew firsthand the joys of growing up in a Christian community, but that's not the norm for people in Japan.
本当に生活の中でイエス様を愛すること、 イエス様を愛して共に歩むこと、互いに愛し合うというのは人々は見て、そして体験して学んでいくものです。あまり家を開放して人々を招いて食事をするっていうのはあまり見ないと思います。しかしそのように招かれて一緒に食事をすると、本当に自分は特別なものとされていると、自分は愛されているんだということを少しずつ感じ取っていく。約50年前アメリカから来た宣教師と、そして数名のクリスチャンがこの家で集会をしていました。実はその数名のクリスチャンというのは私の母だったんですけども、その私の母と、そして宣教師、そしてその母は私をですね、まだ私が赤ちゃんだったらしいんですけども、その抱っこしながらこの家で家庭集会を持って聖書を通して福音を教えてたんですね。その姉妹は50年前福音を聞く機会があって、何回も福音を聞いてました。しかし音信不通になり、約50年間出会いがなかったんです。再び会うことがなく、そしてこの数年前、この姉妹はもう一度ですね、クリスチャンのコミュニティに出会うんですね。そしてもう一度教会の集いに来るようになり、そして去年その娘さんが洗礼を受けて、そして今年姉妹と、そしてこのご主人がイエス様を信じる信仰へと導かれて洗礼を授けることができた。50年以上もこの一人の人がイエス様の愛を知り、はい、私はイエス様に従いますと50年かかった。そのように日本の地は本当に固いようなこの日本の地ですけども、主は確かにこの国の人々を愛し、選びのすべての民を主は救ってくださるということを信じて、私たちは継続して。
So what does your life look like when every day you're surrounded by an intense spiritual need for the gospel?
I'm around all these people, and I know that as we look out this window, right? Or if you're on top of a high building, you can look in every bus, every car, every person, even below the ground, there's people. Every window, every office building, 99% statistically are on their way to a Christless eternity. And daily when you're around that, when you're going to buy groceries next to people, I mean, when you're going to the post office and running in the neighborhood, like it impacts you, right?
This is Chad Farmer, a pastor planting a church in the heart of Shibuya. As an outsider who has lived here for some time, he has seen the need for gospel workers in Japan.
At the church in Osaka, there's a story of a man who came to church. He sat and he heard the word of God being preached, and he heard the gospel, and he's in tears because he said, finally, in my late 60s, finally, was my whole life, I knew there was a God, and I've been trying to find someone to tell me about it. Paul writes in Romans, I make it my ambition to preach the gospel where it hasn't been heard, lest I lay on someone else's foundation. But after that, he says, as it is written, those who haven't heard will know him, those who haven't seen will understand. And to me, that's the thing. We need more messengers. We need more people telling. We need more people loving Jesus, growing in their faith, being a part of the local church, and sharing the gospel of Jesus. We need more churches.
Sharing the gospel in Japan can sometimes involve thinking outside the box, and that can be difficult in a culture that really values the box. But just because most Japanese people don't believe the gospel doesn't mean they wouldn't consider it if they met a Christian friend who could explain it to them. The gospel is only effective when it is shared. Could it be that some of us are called to do just that?
So my husband took me to this church, and at that time he was only a friend. And when I first came to this church, I remember that Pastor Jay and my husband explained 三位一体の神様っていうのを説明してくれて、その時は本当にショックを受けたし、この人たちってこんなに優しくて親切で素敵だけど、でも一方でこういうものすごいことを信じてるんだなっていうのが気持ちとしてあって、自分はあんまり正直関わりたくないかもしれないって思いました。その人たちとっていうより、その考え方に対して ちょっと距離を置きたいかなっていう気持ちがあります。
さっきも言ったけど、周りから理解されるのがすごく難しい。なかなか神様っていうものを、神様を信じるとか他人を愛するっていうことに対してあんまりオープンじゃない日本の人は。教会って言った時にすごい壮大な建物を思い浮かべたり、危ない新興宗教にも同じように教会って名前がついてるところもたくさんあったりして、歴史として学ぶキリスト教とその私たちが身近に宗教として受け入れる、
日本人が宗教に持ってるイメージがまず警戒心がすごい強いと思うんですよね。宗教って聞いたら
Japanese doesn't know how to love each other. Maybe it's really rare to say I love you とか。No, some people feel embarrassing thing to tell love to someone each other. So I want you pray that all Japanese can accept the love of Jesus to be loved. Maybe this is the first step to know about Jesus.
家族とか友人が私が聖書とかキリスト教について話すときに距離を置かれてるなっていうふうに感じることがあります。はっきりと私には宣教しないでねっていうふうに家族から言われたこともあるし、友達からもそうやって言われたことはあるし、自分のその根っこにあるイエス様への信仰っていうのを本当に大事な家族である家族だったり友人と分かち合うことができない信仰上の課題とか祈り合ったりだとかそういったことができないっていうのは本当に寂しく感じますね。
There are many difficulties to be a Christian in Japan, but even if I'm denied by someone, but I can't stop believing in Jesus because He loves me and He saved me. He saved me in many ways. So, of course, there are many difficulties and someone will leave me because I'm a Christian. But being Christian and believe in Jesus and listen to His words is much more valuable っていうか。
Even though Japanese culture can emphasize conformity, it doesn't mean it's boring. Beauty is everywhere. Japanese art is born out of struggle and hurt, and Japan is no stranger to hurt. But even with all this brokenness, a broken world is healed by a broken Christ on a broken tree.